I write about presence, and sometimes I still lose it. Sometimes I still go silent. It starts with a comment, something small, an observation from my partner about something I've done, a note about the things I've left undone, or a word about how she's feeling, implying something about how I've been showing up lately. I receive it as judgment, an accusation, an attack. I sense the distance immediately grow between us. I feel the heaviness descend through the musculature of my face, my cheeks drawing downward, my jaw tightening, my lips pursing, and my eyes avoiding contact. I tend not to respond, or if I do say something, it's dismissive and avoidant. Other times, I feel the heat rise and flush my face, and I bite back with words said out of anger. There is a version of me who could hear the feedback as information, that could remain open and receptive to what she is saying, the intention behind her words, that could remain present, perhaps make a light joke or laugh about it, and could take on what is useful and let go of what is not. That is the version of me who I desire to be. On my better days, it's the version of me who's available. But as I have no doubt you're familiar with, not every day as a father is a better day. I've worked with over 100 men and fathers, and something that I've noticed is that absolutely none of them, myself included, were given an education on emotions in our childhood. Over the past half decade, I've dived deep into the therapeutic techniques, the coaching methods, and the academic literature to develop for myself emotional intelligence. And in doing so, I've improved the way I show up in my relationship and for my family, finding the pathway back to one of those better days more often than not, even when pressures run high. I've been able to embody these skills and model them so that I might raise my son to be more emotionally intelligent. In this essay, I will share with you 3 skills that have fundamentally changed the way in which I show up. These skills are highly learnable and will enable you to give your children the emotional education you were never given. No matter your habitual way of reacting to that which triggers you, these skills, when practiced, will help you to respond more as the kind of father you desire to be, the kind of father you already are beneath the reactions that don't feel like you. But before we build those skills, you need to first understand where your own habits were formed. Most often, this did not start with you. Your father was not able to give you an education in emotions. Now, that's not his fault. He was raised in a world where emotions were not something a man needed to concern himself with. In fact, if he was to talk about his emotions, he would probably find himself ostracized from his family and friends. To feel and express emotions was a dangerous act. Your father was not able to give this to you because he himself was never given it, because he himself did not have the possibility to learn it. And while it may not be his fault, this is the context with which we must examine our situation from. Mark Brackett, director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, tells a story about his own father. When Brackett was struggling as a kid, his father's response was simple. Son, you gotta toughen up. His father was an angry guy with a fixed mindset, reactive and explosive. He had exactly one emotional register and summed it up simply with, "This is the way I am. You're going to have to deal with it." I watched a different version of this play out in my own home. My father would arrive home from work and retreat into the television. When tension arose in the home around him, he did not fight, he disappeared. Occasionally, the pressure would exceed what the container could hold and anger would erupt. Never violent, but real. And then gone again, buried back beneath the docility. What I did not understand at the time was that I was watching a defense. Most fathers reading this will recognize something of these stories. Maybe your father was the angry one. Maybe he was the silent one. Maybe he disappeared into work or the garage or the television. Maybe he was never around or available. He was not necessarily a bad man. He was doing the best he could. He was doing what he had been taught, but what he had been taught was incomplete. The men of previous generations were handed a single emotional tool: suppression. Keep it down, keep it in, keep moving. Suppression might work in the short term, it might get you through the crisis, but it does not resolve anything. It just stores the emotion in the body where it waits until the pressure exceeds the capacity of the container and then comes out sideways. Your father was himself a child that was never allowed to feel. He was told that sadness was weakness, that fear was failure, That tenderness was suspect. He was given no language for his inner life, so he could not give you one. What we call suppression in a father is, in truth, a defense. A defense is not a character flaw, but the mind's brilliant way of protecting itself from pain it was never taught to handle. My father's television was the best protection available to a man who had been given exactly one way to approach his emotions, and no map for what to do when it failed. But when you believe your emotions are intolerable, you cannot help your child to accept theirs. You cannot model what you were not able to explore yourself. Dr. Dan Siegel offers an insight that gives us a route through this dilemma. It is not what happened to you as a child that determines how you show up as a parent. It is whether you have made sense of it. Unprocessed childhood experiences live in what Dan Siegel calls the implicit memory. They shape your reactions without your conscious awareness. The man who swore he would never yell in the way that his father yelled, who then hears his father's voice coming out of his own mouth, is running a program that he has not yet examined. When your ancestors experienced emotional wounds that were left unaddressed, those wounds led to critical and harsh behaviors, chronic anxiety, and neglecting the emotional needs of children. And whilst each generation genuinely does their best, they also pass down what they cannot resolve. There's a misconception that in order to be wounded by what happened in your past, it had to have been some kind of significant trauma. And whilst it is certainly true that most men have experienced at least one or more adverse childhood experience, it's the way in which you were raised that actually sets the foundation around how you habitually feel and respond to the world, your partner, and your children. That said, all fathers are affected by what occurred in their childhood, and every father can benefit from doing some kind of deep self-inquiry on the subject. For me personally, I have the same shutdown tendency in me that my father carried. I've come to know it by its embodied signature, the tension I experience. My body provides me signals of the reaction before I've even made the move to retreat, and certainly before my mind has caught up. The difference between my father and myself is not that I'm any more or less capable. It's one generation of slowly accumulated awareness and knowledge, one lifetime's freedom to explore myself and my inner landscape. He did not have the language. His father did not have it either. They did not live in a time where the information was available. They did not live in a time where emotional intelligence was needed for a man. The demand placed upon men of this generation, however, is different, and the way in which we desire to show up for our families is also different. The silent struggle of men has a lineage. It did not begin with you, but it can certainly end with you. Understanding the inheritance is half the work. The other half is having a map for what to do when you were activated. When we are triggered and the familiar grip of habits takes hold, it is actually the best opportunity to do this work. The change triangle, popularized by Hilary Jacobs Hendel, offers a simple framework to practice, even when the heat is running high. The triangle has 3 corners: defense, inhibition, and emotion. Whenever we experience an emotion that is intolerable, we negate the feeling by exchanging in defensive behaviors, and we get a whole lot of inhibitory emotion in the exchange. So number 1, defense. Blame, withdrawal, control, numbing, judgment, snapping, outburst, procrastination, people-pleasing, addiction, negative thinking, rumination. Each of the behaviors is not a failure, but a strategy for self-protection. They shield you from experiencing the emotions you were never taught to handle. Number 2, inhibition, anxiety, shame, guilt. Inhibitory emotions suppress your core emotions. They keep the lid on the pot, so to speak. Number 3, emotion, anger, sadness, fear, disgust, excitement, joy. These are your core emotions, biological experiences at the level of the body. They provide critical information about survival and value. When my partner makes the comment and I receive it as judgment, here is how that maps onto the triangle. My defense is shutdown, withdrawal, getting shit done. Beneath the defense is shame. I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. And beneath the shame are the core emotions that the shame is blocking. Anger, which carries the signal that I need a boundary about how feedback is delivered, or there's a need that is not being met in that moment. And sadness, an older wound that predates my partner by decades. Her feedback activates something in me that is already there and tender. The goal is not to stop having emotions. The goal is to move down the triangle from defense to inhibitory emotion, from inhibitory emotion to core emotion. In recognizing, feeling, and processing the core emotion, we are able to find beneath it a state of regulated presence. In this state, we become calm, curious, compassionate, connected. But this is not a movement that occurs once when you arrive there and stay, right? It is a process and a practice you return to again and again. Our feelings contain energy and movement. This energy needs to be felt, processed, and released for us to be well. You cannot think your way through emotions. You have to experience them in your body. It's why so many fathers stay stuck in the defenses. They're trying to think their way out of something that can only be felt through. Over time, through practice, the pattern itself begins to dissipate, and we are better able to freely express ourselves and act authentically. The 3 skills that follow are the practical application of this map. Each one moves you from one corner of the triangle to the next, closer to the state of presence. And whilst they are not complicated, what makes them difficult is practicing them when you are depleted, activated, or reverting to the wiring that you inherited. If something lands, I encourage you to write it down. Skill 1, the pause. Pausing is the hardest skill I know. It looks like doing nothing. It feels like failure. It goes against every impulse a father has been trained into. Yet, the single most effective skill you can apply in developing emotional intelligence is actually doing nothing at all, but doing it with deliberate intention. Siegel describes 2 neural pathways that make the pause more than just a breathing exercise. The low road fires through the amygdala, fast, reactive, defensive. It registers a threat and then reacts accordingly. The high road engages the prefrontal cortex, slower, reflective, capable of seeing options. When we're triggered or activated, we are pushed onto the low road. We're no longer parenting from our values, we're parenting from our past. When this occurs, we are often lured into enacting our defensive strategies to avoid the feelings, and it happens too quickly for our mind to keep up. In these moments, the body becomes the canary in the coal mine. Our body has a physical response to the stimulus that we perceive as threatening before we're able to cognize what is happening. And it is far more tangible a thing to notice. Our thoughts are fleeting and hard to pin down. Our body, however, it's here. We can touch it. We can feel it. We can sense it. The sensations themselves become the pathway toward pausing. We can notice the familiar patterns of tension arising in our body, the clenching of the jaw, the bracing of the shoulders, the sharpening of the breath, the narrowing of the vision. Our stress signature indicates to us that something is amiss and to pay attention. That is the moment to pause, to ask for time and space. And with this pause, we actually move out of the defensive corner of the triangle, but the process itself can be wildly uncomfortable because it means encountering the guilt, the shame, and the anxiety head on. Though it's better to confront these inhibitory emotions as early as possible before we say or do something that we might regret. Brackett illustrates this through a story every father will recognize. When he would come home from a hard day, his father, the angry guy, would have said, "Son, leave me alone." End of it. But Brackett imagines a different kind of script. "Son, I have to tell you something. I just had a really rough day at work. I said something I feel bad about. Daddy needs a bit of time to process it. I love you, and we will play later." What did that father just teach? That dads have feelings. That dads make mistakes and reflect on them. That dads can take time to integrate and come back. And whilst the outcome might seem similar on the surface, the experience for the child is remarkably different. Notice in this example what else the father did. He gave himself permission to have a hard day. He didn't pretend he was fine. He didn't suck it up. He named his reality without making his child responsible for it. The child can already sense something about his father. And when his father's words and actions actually align with what his child senses, he reads his father's authenticity and he learns that actually he can also trust his own feelings. So the structure of the pause. 1. You sense something has shifted. You recognize a familiar signature of tension and sensation in your body, or you notice a familiar defensive behavior occurring. Number 2, you pause. Simply suspend what you are doing. Stop talking, stop moving, stop making decisions, own what is happening, and ask for some time and space. Number 3, you use the pause to regulate. Take a breath, feel your feet on the ground. Don't use this as an excuse to escape. Use it to actually attend to yourself in order to show up again. More on this in the next skills. Number 4, you ask yourself, who is the father and partner I want to be in this moment? Number 5, you return. You step into that version and you respond with intention. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to find the pause. Skill 2, name it. Most fathers' emotional vocabulary is awful. They operate with 3 words: fine, stressed, and pissed off. And building language is a task many have never attempted to undertake. To complicate things further, we often lack an understanding about how our felt sense of emotion maps to definitions we might give to the word itself. I still am struggling to label what I am feeling as anger, despite having traversed that territory quite deeply. It's worth the effort to develop your ability to name what you feel. As Dan Siegel's work reveals, the process of naming activates the prefrontal cortex and begins the process of integration. It brings us back onto the high road. But you cannot name what you cannot feel. So the first move is not to reach for the right word, it's actually to turn inward and investigate what is occurring beneath the guilt, the shame, the anxiety. In order to come in touch with what core emotion we are experiencing, we must develop the means to embrace the discomfort. Shame has a bodily pattern. It is postural collapse, the chest caved in, the shoulders rounded, the head lowered, eyes downcast. Guilt is often experienced more outwardly as discomfort in the gut, tension in the chest and in the mouth, physical restlessness. Anxiety often presents as a racing heart, shallow breathing, a tight throat, butterflies in the stomach, overall muscular tension, or a general dizziness. Now, as you read those descriptions, I'm sure that a number of those signatures have touched a place in you. Perhaps you've even re-experienced to some extent. I'm also sure that more than anything, you want to avoid feeling more of it. Perhaps the hardest part is staying with the discomfort long enough for it to pass. In these moments, I recall something a mentor said to me. The earth has seen it all before. Whatever I'm confronted by, whatever I'm feeling, whatever the situation, the earth has held this before, and it can also hold me in my experience. So I can bring my attention to the ground beneath me and allow myself to be held by that ground, to yield into the supporting surface. And in finding connection to the earth, I can give inch by inch, vertebra by vertebra, stacking my structure from the ground up. Now, for some, that kind of an idea might seem a little esoteric, and if you've never tried something like that before, let me just say the results of a practice like that are truly remarkable, and I'd encourage you to try it. Leveraging the support beneath me and optimizing my posture within the field of gravity, I essentially undo the impact of the inhibitory emotion. My posture is no longer collapsed. The tension has somewhat dissipated. I feel grounded enough to then meet whatever is arising. To be no longer bound by the grip of inhibition, there's no other words. It just feels like freedom. Now, having sat with and moved through the inhibitory emotion, we are now left to understand what we're really feeling beneath. Again, the way in which we do this is at the level of the body. We cannot rationalize how we should or should not be feeling. What we feel simply is, and all we need to do is pay attention. So, since you're already sitting with yourself, next is to feel whatever is arising in your body. Core emotions are comprised of sensations, temperatures, energy, and impulse. As you listen to the following core emotions, consider what that might feel like at the level of your body. Sometimes the core emotion is obvious. Other times you might need to try them on one by one. Sadness, anger, fear, disgust, excitement, joy. As my mentor said, our feelings tell us what matters, in what way it matters, and to what degree it matters. By experiencing them, we can harness their wisdom and access a map that tells us a lot about ourselves and what we value. Each core emotion has a unique meaning, somatic signature, and adaptive action. Sadness says something you value has been lost. It's experienced as heaviness in the chest, a lump in the throat, low energy, a pull towards stillness. It invites comfort and lets us grieve. Anger says something you value is threatened. It's experienced as heat in the hands and in the face, with strong impulses for action. It asks us to protect our boundaries and correct what's wrong. Fear says something you value is endangered. It's experienced as a racing heart, cold or trembling hands, and activation in the legs. It mobilizes us for escape. Disgust says something is not aligned with our values. It's experienced as nausea and sensations in the throat and in the stomach. It warns of contamination or harm and prompts us to reject. Excitement tells us we are approaching something we value. It's experienced as a quickening pulse and energy building in the chest and limbs. It fuels curiosity, interest, and growth. Joy tells us when we are in the presence of something we value. It's experienced as warmth spreading across the chest and the body. With a relaxed, open posture, it draws us toward connection. Putting language on an emotional experience integrates the right hemisphere's felt sense with left hemisphere's linguistic capacity. This integration is calming to the nervous system, and it metabolizes the emotion. What our emotions reveal to us might be uncomfortable. We might discover how our lives and relationships are actually out of congruence with what we truly value. It may indicate to us that the things we do or how we do them and how we relate with others may need to radically change. And whilst tuning into our emotions might come with some initial discomfort, the insights we discover and the changes we make shift us toward living a life more aligned with who we are and how we wish to be as a man, a partner, and a father. The structure of Name It. 1. You find stillness. After pausing, take a moment to come to yourself. You could be seated, standing, laying down, just a place that you can be still for a moment. Number 2, you ground yourself. Feel the ground beneath you. Notice your breath moving. Allow your posture to find alignment. Soften any unnecessary tension. Number 3, you notice. Beneath the tension, notice whatever is arising within you. The coldness in your hands, the heat in your face, the butterflies in your gut, the impulse to cry, the impulse to throw something, the impulse to smile. If all you can notice is tension, you might still be inhibiting what lies beneath. So go back to step 2, ground yourself again, and try on different core emotions. Number 4, you name it. Give it a label. What is the emotion? What might it be telling you? Number 5, you work with it. Our emotions are a compass. When we ignore them, we lose our way. But when we listen, they guide the way. The process of naming the emotion alone actually releases its grip upon us and allows us to come back to regulated presence. From this place, we are then positioned to attend to it, to work with it, to make shifts in our lives. Perhaps not right away, but as we come to understand ourselves better through repeated practice, we cannot help but be changed by the process. Brackett ran a longitudinal study during the pandemic. When leaders were perceived as both self-regulated and skilled at co-regulating, frustration among their teams dropped by 40% and burnout plummeted. The research showed that co-regulation is trainable and that leaders who do it well transform their organization. The same mechanism operates in families. Parents who are able to co-regulate with their children transform their capacity to handle the world. The mistake that many fathers make in this process is that they try to calm their child by talking and rationalizing. A dysregulated child cannot access language. Their prefrontal cortex is offline, and their developing nervous system does not have the means for self-regulation. Though what they can access is your nervous system. In a process known as neuroception, their developing nervous system is reading yours. If you are regulated, they borrow your calm. If you are dysregulated, you pour fuel on their fire. The brain is a social organ. Interpersonal relationships shape neural connections. When you lend your child your regulated state, you are not just calming them in the moment, you're actually building the neural architecture they will use to regulate themselves for the rest of their lives. The way in which your child develops emotional intelligence is inside the container of your own regulation and your relationships with your emotions. These lessons are not taught through lectures or books, although those may have some use. It is ultimately taught through your body in real time in how you show up, in the moments when you're triggered, in the moments when you're stressed, in the moments when you're tired, in the way in which you communicate. There is a version of fatherhood that treats emotional dependence as weakness. Toughen up, stop crying. That version produces adults who are emotionally unintelligent, who cannot name what they feel, and who cannot regulate themselves in the face of a difficult and uncertain world. The alternative that I'm proposing here does not require you to indulge every emotion. We're not using emotions as an excuse not to set boundaries, or not to be disciplined, or not to confront adversity, or not to pursue hard things. It is just simply to meet the emotion itself without becoming it. It is to be informed by what we discover and make better decisions based on better information. It is to speak and act in accordance with who we are at our core. And it is to model that for our children. When adults help children to move through their emotions, they develop a felt sense that they are loved and cared for who they are, no matter what they feel. They learn, I'm not alone with this. They develop the confidence to explore and engage with the world, knowing their father is their secure base and he has their back no matter what it is that they are confronting. But also, they are capable of doing hard things, great things, meaningful things. But it begins with how the father himself shows up. The structure of co-regulation. Number one, you use the pause. No matter what is occurring, perhaps your child is sad, frustrated, defiant, lying, fighting back, it doesn't matter what. First, pause for 10 seconds, a minute, longer if it's needed and available. 2, you regulate yourself. Feel your feet on the ground, lengthen the exhalation, soften the tension in your face, shoulders, chest. Perhaps that is enough. Or perhaps you're really triggered and you need to find a moment for yourself in the midst of chaos. I notice I'm activated right now. Daddy needs a minute. I'll be back. Number 3, you work the change triangle to name it. Maybe this is available to you in the moment, or maybe there is no time or space. If that's the case, be sure to pin it and return back to it whenever you next can. Number 4, you engage with your child. Having regulated yourself, you come to them and down to their level. Some moments will ask for you to speak. Others might require your embodied silent presence only. If you do speak, do so in a calm and steady tone. Number 5, you decide what to do next. Whatever it is you choose to do, whether it's affirming a boundary, exploring their experience, speaking about what happened, helping them process things through play, you will engage in it from a place of self-regulation and co-regulation. It is far more likely that whatever comes next, whatever you decide to do, will be given and received with the attention it deserves. Engaging in a process like this has the potential to turn moments of conflict and rupture, moments where distance threatens to grow, into moments of deep understanding and connection. We're not looking for perfection, because God only knows that's unlikely to be available to you in the heat of the moment. What we're looking for is a practice, a devotion to showing up again, to the work, again and again. Every father is passing down an emotional inheritance, whether he knows it or not. The question is whether you are aware of what you are transmitting and whether it is intentional. Your father's father and your father could not do this, but you are able to change things for your child. These skills are not complicated. They are learnable. What is hard is practicing them when you are exhausted, triggered, reverting to the defenses you inherited from men who never had the chance to learn another way. That is why we build these practices when times are good, so that they will be more likely to be available when times are not. What I can tell you from where I currently find myself, it's worth the investment. The pattern can change. Things can improve. The shutdown that used to arrive like clockwork when my partner would give that comment, the heaviness in my face, the retreat into getting shit done, the days of distance that followed, it surfaces less and less now. I have a map. I can feel the defenses earlier than I used to. I can sit with the shame before it consumes me. I can name what I am actually feeling underneath, and I can ask for what I need. I can pause, and when I cannot, I can repair. None of us can undo our painful past, but we can all take steps to create a different future. One of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves and our children is an understanding of who we are, who they are, and what we feel. A map for navigating their inner territory so that they can show up in the world more as they are. Now that's an inheritance worth working towards. Emotional intelligence is such a big and deep topic and subjective to each and every one of us. I've helped men and fathers to get back in touch with their bodies, to understand themselves better, and to integrate the emotions that arise in the process. As a result, they've each become better fathers, partners, friends, and men in the world. Men who are living lives more in accordance with their values and creating more beautiful worlds for themselves and their family. If you want to do the work, not just read about it, then reach out. I'll tell you about the Art of Fatherhood program. May the effect of your presence ripple forth.